Hey, welcome everybody. We're glad to have you tune in tonight to the River Life Family Worship Center live stream. We got a special treat tonight. We're going to have another panel, and we'll be talking about marriage here in a few moments. It's called Marriage, Mayhem, or Miracle. Sometimes marriage can get a little wild, so we thank you for tuning in. We're going to try to keep it brief and amazing tonight. You know, God has a lot of good things. I want to mention we also have a website. If you'd like to tune into that sometime, just check it out, rlfwc.com. We have a lot of the old sermons and a few blogs up there, just different information about the church. We're doing services now. We have a Friday night service, or excuse me, not a Friday night service, but a Saturday night service at 6, and then our regular service is at 10 a.m. in the morning on Sunday with live stream at 10:30. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. Also, there's an opportunity to give. We thank you for helping to donate financially if you can. We appreciate that. So the scripture I would like to share today before we, as we're starting off with our message on mayhem or miracle, is a passage found in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33. And it says, "Nevertheless, each individual among you also is to love his own wife, even as himself, and the wife must see to it that she respects her husband." So we see from that passage there's a difference between men and women, and we're going to go into that a little bit tonight. But the idea, what I liked about it, is that you're supposed to love your own wife. You're not supposed to love somebody else's wife, if you know what I'm saying. There's a lot of that going around. So we got to be careful. But, you know, God tells us a lot of things because the reason why we're doing this tonight is that most marriages have some gaps in their fence line. You kind of picture your relationship and your marriage like a fence that surrounds you. And what happens is there's a lot of gaps in there. And when them gaps are there, it's places that the enemy, meaning the devil, tries to come in and bring a division between a husband and a wife. And to me, marriage is more than just jumping in bed together, but it's be willing to grow together in our marriage. And that's important. You know, there'll be some tension. You know, people are opposites, get married, and that tension, it's normal. But what I found is tension is good because it helps us to grow. So we grow through those problems. So we're excited about that. I've always said there's the two best lives that we can experience in the world. Number one is a Christian life, becoming born again, and the second is the married life. And if you're, you know, if you're not a Christian yet, we'd like to help you. But if you're having a marriage that's struggling, we want to help you because I know that I love being married. You know, if not, you know, I don't know what would have happened to me anyway. So we're going to introduce our panel here. Right now I'll introduce my wife, Denise, Pastor Denise. She helps me pastor this church. We started this church years ago, and we're looking forward to sharing some stuff. And we kind of made an agreement. We're going to take it easy on each other, maybe. I don't know. Then we're going to have Sister Scarlett Summers come up. And Jason, her husband, they're going to share with us a great amount of wisdom when it comes to marriages. And, you know, when I was thinking about doing this, we go to weddings and they cut the cake. Two things can happen when they feed each other the cake, right? Yeah. One is that they be real nice and just kind of give you a little bite.
That's what I told him he had to do.
And the other one is they just jam it in their face. So I really don't know what's going to happen here tonight. You know, this is live. So a lot of things can happen, and some of us may be dead when we're over. Yes. You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So, amen. All right. So, getting started here, I like to start with the foundation. You know, foundations are important. So, just throwing this out to the group here, how important is a good foundation in your marriage? And is love enough? Is love enough for a foundation?
It depends on what kind of love you're talking about. You know, you have that infatuation, that kind of love. You're attracted to the person. I know with Brad, it was just something about him. I was just always so drawn to him, you know? And there's that
in that too. You know, we're interested in finding out what was it that you attracted you to. We want to know that.
What I did is I put a piece of steel in her pocket and I put a bunch of magnets in my pocket. I was just drawing her to me.
That's the miracle part of this
miracle.
miracle.
Oh, that's too funny. No, but you know, there's that. But you can't just go by your feelings. It's got to be something deeper in a relationship.
Yeah.
And for us, God really connected us, and that was a very solid foundation.
Yeah, we met in Bible school,
Yeah.
so that was good.
Yep.
Okay, so Scarlett?
You go ahead.
No,
I like to hear him talk.
I'd love to listen
And
to
then
her.
I
She's
think
your
that's
favorite listener on the
great.
radio,
Right,
right?
just
She
agree.
is
live
your biggest
broadcast.
fan. She is your biggest fan.
And the awesome news is that I'm also her biggest fan, and I think love is enough. The right kind of love is enough. It's enough to get us through all of life's challenges, and so love is enough. When love is, I think we'll go into this later on. When love is no longer an emotion or feeling, when love becomes the action, and love is not something I'm waiting for someone else to deliver to me. Love becomes the thing that I have to decide on. First, I have to mentally decide that I want to give it, and then I have to do that. And so love is enough.
I hope so.
I think of that.
Because I can be
I think of
trying.
that great rock band, Captain Tennille, right now.
Yeah.
Love will keep us together. I don't know. But as a pastor, I've married people, and I do counseling. I suggest counseling before you get married. I mean, it's a big mistake if you don't. I know men don't like to go through that, but I've had people sit there and tell me that they love each other, best friends, never had a fight, and I've seen them last 6 months.
Yeah.
So what kind of love are we talking about? And I know we're going to go into a couple Greek words here, just to throw out, show that we're highly educated, I guess, or whatever. There's 2 words in the Greek, and one's eros and one's agape. And you want to share anything about that?
Well, that eros is that sexual drawing. You're attracted to them. You want to be with them, and you get excited by touching, holding hands. I mean, everything. I can remember Brad just playing with my hair. It was just like, oh, it just melted
I
me.
never did that.
Yeah, you did. And while we were dating. And so.
Didn't change yet.
And so, that kind of stuff, everything's exciting. Everything is new, But I'll tell you, it changes when you have to live with the person. I know Brad and I were very different. We're very opposites, but that's why I was drawn to him, because his strengths were my weaknesses. And I just thought, this guy compliments me. He's awesome. But then to have to live with those, strengths all the time when you're not that, it's tough, And so it was a choice then. You choose to, love and get along and decide I'm staying in this and stuff like that, because it was a trial, because we are so opposite of each other. But so there is those different kinds of love, and then, but the thrill of it all and the excitement of it all does change, because you go through everyday life and have responsibilities, all that kind of stuff.
I absolutely believe that you really need to have both.
Yeah, you do.
You have to have both loves, and the thing I am so grateful for is that my she's been the most attractive woman my eyes have ever seen from the moment I saw her, and that hasn't changed. And
She's in the top 2.
well, Pastor, I hate to tell you, she's not in my top 2, and so she is number 1. But
She better not be.
yes.
I see what
But
you're saying. It's not you. I thought it was
anyways,
Kenneth.
no.
Yeah, my daughter is very beautiful, but there's never been a woman that's caught my eye the way my wife has, and
That's good.
that's a choice too.
It is a choice.
It's a continuous choice of what my father. And I've mentioned this in other podcasts we were on. Is that one of the things that he told me? He was an avid mushroom hunter and would find 4-leaf clovers. And one time he was looking at, standing outside, and he reached down and picked up a 4-leaf clover out of the ground. And I said, Dad, how do you do that? You make that look easy. He said, well, it's amazing, Jason, what you find when you look for it. Because most of the time, whatever we're looking for in life, we're going to find. And so, my wife continues to be the most beautiful woman in the world to me, because it isn't hard, as you can see. She's beautiful.
Jason and I's going to get flowers tonight, I think.
I think we already got them, Pastor. We preemptive.
Pillsbury or
Yes,
Gold
exactly.
Bond, I don't know which one.
So I think it's very important to have both of those, and to cultivate both of those in your relationship, the euro
you do.
and the agape.
And the agape, which is a committed love.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a decision, like you've said before. That agape love.
And it has to, because they say 40% of marriages do end in divorce. And if you're listening tonight, maybe you've been divorced. We're not wanting to cut down or criticize in any way, shape, or form. But, God's blood that he shed, Jesus did, and it can set you free from that, and no shame or guilt here. But I just want to say, if you're married, we're trying to give you ways to try to keep you together and maybe get you ready for the next time if you choose to marry again.
I think I might want to just share too is that, Pastor and I, we just graduated from Bible school and we did get engaged and then we got married. And everybody always thought, oh, you're going to be just fine because you're Bible school graduates.
Right.
And that had nothing to do with marriage. Our first year was really rough. And I think we were thinking, oh my goodness, we're in this for life. We can't divorce. You know what I mean? And that first year was hard. And so, you do have those feelings sometimes of wanting to get,
I'm thinking back.
Death sentence.
well, that's
You can laugh at it now. But no,
yeah, you can. But what I want to let you know is that God can do miracles because that's what he did. I mean, I can remember calling my mom and dad saying, "I want to come home," and my dad told me, "You're not welcome home." And he says,
Tough
"You
love.
need to." Yes,
Tough
it
love.
was.
You need to work it out.
Yeah, you need to work it out.
I'll tell you
We
what,
chose him.
it was just
James.
tough,
Yeah,
because
I did.
the way I look at it, if I had to stay married, everybody has to stay married.
You opened up, Pastor. You said that the two best lives, the Christian life and the marriage life, and I think sometimes we look at marriage either as a death sentence or a life sentence.
Yeah.
And you think about that. Life sentence is a powerful thing. It brings life to my life. My marriage brings life to my life. It brings purpose and meaning. The same way my Christian walk is. It's never an easy moment, but it brings life to my life. It brings purpose. My Christian walk brings purpose to my life. The ultimate purpose. My marriage brings purpose to my life. So it's not a death sentence, it's a life sentence.
Yes, amen. A little bit more I wanted to share on that eros and agape. They're two different words in the Greek, and eros is erotic love. And that's what a lot of people feel, that chemistry where you're drawn to somebody. You've all experienced it. Well, whoa, something about that person. But what happens in our culture, we kind of get in a little trouble because a lot of people make the mistake of getting too physical quick.
Yeah.
And then they jump in bed or whatever the case may be, and they live as husband and wife, but they've never developed the emotional or the spiritual side of that love. And then I think that's why we get into some troubles. And
That's really
so
good point.
if we could just learn not to put the cart before the horse, and if you really feel like you love somebody, you want to make that life with them. Maybe you're single now thinking about this, make sure you develop that emotional, because, the physical side, it does get a little, change a little bit as you get older and things like that. Just like, all that stuff.
I love what my wife's hand did, like this first
But
day.
it's-
Waiting for it.
But it's a feeling,
Yeah.
and feelings lie to us.
And feelings
sometimes,
change.
And they change.
They can change day to day,
Yeah.
up and down like a roller
Yeah, roller
coaster.
coaster.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Minute to minute.
It's kind of like I had that picture of a gremlin on each shoulder sometimes. That's how some people's feelings kind of get, He's bad. No, he's good. No, he's bad. He's good. Depends which one you listen to, but
That's
anyway.
right.
That's
Which
good.
one are you going to feed?
He's like,
Another thing I'd like to get into is the idea of the covenant connection. The cord of three strands it talks about in the Bible. You got the man, the woman, and that third strand is God. And how important it is to bring God into that foundation and making that covenant connection. What has God or helped you in your marriages? Anything that you'd like to share?
I just know that prayer, that's something we used to do
Oh, yeah.
together, even
Still
when
do.
we were
We
engaged.
still do.
Well, yes, I mean, we do still do it, but in the engagement part, and he was talking about, keeping the physical, not too much in the beginning. And I think that is so good. The old values of courtship, it really does make you feel special and stuff when the man, is willing to court you,
Yes.
wait for you, and then see that, you're worth waiting for and stuff. So that is really neat. But then we would pray together, and that really did make a bond in our
Mhm.
heart,
It
together.
really knits your hearts
It
together.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went and spoke with the William Penn football team. They asked me to come in and speak to them, and you're talking about 20-year-old men, and if 20-year-old men are, we're conquering the world, and women tend to be the thing we're probably seeking the most, right? And I said, you guys, I know all of you are looking for that intimate place that you have in a physical relationship with a woman. I said, but if you want to feel something really intimate, really life changing, is to pray with the person that you're in love with. That prayer time, because it breaks down those walls. When you're in prayer together, and I can't say that we do it enough.
Yeah.
So that may be one of my shortcomings. But that intimacy that you share in those moments when you're really praying, not some ritual prayer, but when you're really in the depths of prayer, you get to see the content of your heart. And as a marriage, the more you reveal the content of the true nature of your heart, it opens up opportunities for vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right? But that vulnerability opens up opportunities for vulnerability.
And I think
And
men
for
struggle with that a little more,
communication.
don't you think?
Because we don't want to see we
Yeah.
don't want our weakness to be seen,
Yeah.
because we're gonna go out and battle and conquer and provide, and all of that can still be true by showing the content of my heart. It's one of the things that I really want to get across to my kids, and the people who I'm most intimate with, is to see my vulnerability. It makes me more vulnerable. Again, in a marriage, that when you have when your spouse gives you their vulnerability, it's probably a wise thing not to use that weapon against them.
Oh yeah.
Which allows us each to go, and in prayer, we're giving that to God, aren't we?
Right.
And so now we've got this three-corded,
Time.
and it's important. Now, I can't imagine going into a relationship that's long-term. We say we need to get on the same page. No, we need to get on the same book. It's be important as a couple, not just to be on the same page in life, but what book are we working out of, right?
Yeah.
And that's why God and the foundations of a Christian marriage are so important. It's not that, the rigidness of what we think the law of the Word of God is going to keep us married. You guys went through Bible school, and you it was difficult in the first year, right?
Yeah.
It isn't the rigidness of what we think the law is and sticking to a covenant. What it does is creates a place where we can go to together and have this place where we have somebody who loves us more than anything else in the world, and that is God, to help hold us together when things are tough, and allows us to be vulnerable. That's what prayer does in a relationship.
It really opens up conversation too afterwards, after you pray. It brings, like you said, that vulnerability, so that then you can actually talk and share and communicate so much better too when you do have that prayer time together. So it does. It opens up new doors in that respect too.
See, covenant is talking about, in the Old Testament especially, they would make a covenant, it was binding. You couldn't get out of that covenant. Really, that's kind of what we need to get into with each other and with God. And something I want to kind of explore now, we have that covenant connection with God. We made a promise. Most people get married, and a lot of times in the ceremony it says they make a promise before God, but they also make promises to each other. And I think a promise is very important. And something I'd like to look at, the idea is the fact that we need to make a covenant contract with our spouse. And what that means is I don't think a lot of people take time to do that, because usually when it comes to marriage, we take it for granted because everybody's been doing it for years, and you've watched it modeled and different things. But then when you get into it, I think most people are unprepared. And here's some examples what I mean by that. For us, even in a hard time, we would say, don't use the word divorce in a conversation when you get angry. Like I said, it's not the unpardonable sin, but if you're married and you really want to work on your marriage, don't just get mad. Don't throw that out as a threat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how do you do that? Well, you just get together. You say, this is how we're going to have an argument. You can explain a little bit how to have a good fight. What I mean? Without, and where not to go. Don't make it personal about the person in the sense where you're cutting them down. You can maybe talk about the action, but don't make it.
Or this is how I felt when you said that.
Yes.
Instead of,
Yes.
this is what you did.
This is what, yeah.
Instead of that, yeah.
Another one, how about, we got a financial planner here with us, get a financial plan on how you're going to run your finances.
Yeah, I think
They say finances is one of the bigger causes of divorce.
don't you think that everything we've talked about here comes down to our ability to share with each other in a place where we feel safe. And again, I think this is why it's so important to allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about these things, it's communication. I mean, what in life would you say would be an important thing for a business owner, a sports team, or a marriage?
But we think it and don't say
Well,
it.
that's we're
one
not
of
mind readers, right?
Yeah.
And some of the things that have gotten me in trouble, my wife, she doesn't know. I'm working all day, right? And I'm thinking about getting home on time to be. I've got all these plans in my head. And I've thought about all the things I'm going to do and all these romantic things in my head that I'm going to do. And I've spent all my day working there. And then I get home and it's late. And I'm late to get home and I ran through it. And then she doesn't know that in my thoughts all day long, I couldn't wait for that moment. But my life got turned sideways and I dealt with it. The same thing for her. You can't, right, well, we can't read each other's minds,
Yeah.
So we oftentimes are thinking all the right stuff and never imparting the right
It's
words.
a sin of assumption.
Yeah.
One thing I suggest, not meaning to meddle in people's finances a little bit, but I'm going to anyway. I know there's the idea of having a joint checking account. And this is something when I counsel couples. Different people have different views on it because some people, I've counseled and, one of them doesn't save a lot of money and the other is kind of frugal. And, so there can be that. And I've heard people, emptying out the checking account, you're going to have all those troubles. So some have joint checking accounts. And I think that takes away a little bit of trust on each other. What I usually counsel people is to get a third account. That's a joint account.
Yes.
And then you each feed that account to pay the bills, and you sit down and you pay the bills together. So that both husband and wife know where the money is, know where they stand, and then because I know some couples, I'll pay the rent or the mortgage, and you pay the gas and all this, and if that works for you, that's fine. But I want you to learn to trust each other. And maybe step out and take that next step and kind of grow together financially and get a good financial plan for your future.
Trust and know that each of us have wants, right? And for your spouse to feel comfortable in explaining and wanting the wants, and not to feel like they have to hide their wants and the things they want to buy or have. And I think it is important then to share in that communication, and then for her to know that in a covenant relationship, if we understand covenant really what it is, and this is so amazing when you really grab it in our relationship with God and how it should be in our marriage, is that everything that I have is hers. Mm-hmm. It's not half stuff; it's all, right? I hear people say all the time, well, I have half, right?
Yeah.
Well, everything, it is true. So everything, everything is ours and hers. And that's the way with God. So, think about this. I give God everything. And what am I giving? I'm giving up nothing. But in a covenant relationship, it really means you share everything.
Yes.
And to be able to share in that and realize that we have different wants at times, but to not be afraid to share those wants or to have to hide those, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that you act on all your wants. That's probably not healthy, right? And to discuss those things, but to not live in fear of letting each other know the things that you want in life. I think that's very important. It's healthy.
Yeah.
Doesn't always mean that we want to
find
decide.
out eventually.
It's like me. I gotta tell you though, when I was first married, okay, and I married for
Don't. No, we're supposed to know nice stories. So
this is great.
I don't
this is good stuff.
hear it.
This is okay.
No.
This is not a problem. I wanted a boat. And guess what I did? I
Oh,
had one
okay,
boat,
that's
and I
right,
bought.
okay.
I'm trying to think of other stories that I would be bad,
Never mind.
but the boat. I buy a boat.
And it was a
Without
brand
talking
new.
to
It
her?
was
It
just
was
an
old, it
older
was a
boat.
boat, but
Yeah.
it was a very nice boat. I
It was a
wanted.
surprise for her.
This is in the middle
Yeah,
of
it was a
January,
surprise.
right?
In January.
Here, I didn't, you know,
Yeah.
so the boat shows up at the house, and she was with this. Well, see, and then I named the boat Scarlet's Fever because, you know, what I didn't realize is that, you know, I didn't worry about buying it because I knew she'd want me to have my boat, and it wasn't a matter of not caring about her opinion. It's just I just knew she'd want me to have it because I knew
just
she
knew.
wanted
You
me to.
happy?
He knew.
Yeah.
And how did I react?
You had a fever. And by the way, she should have had a fever. And that's why the boat was called Scarlet's Fever.
Yeah.
Oh my
It wasn't
God.
only
I
called the
thought
Scarlet.
I
and
thought
you
I
chose it.
said I can't even swim.
I realized at that moment, you know, I'd spent so much
A
time.
water
swim.
She
person.
couldn't even swim.
No, I can't.
Oh, really?
No, she couldn't. So we had this boat that she never
Yeah.
even wanted to be on the water.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy
Which brings
it.
me to
It's
the
just
idea,
not-
don't assume anything's what I had written down.
That's a good one.
You know, what worked when you're dating may not work when you're married. And then I found that out. I think we all
Like
have.
what?
And
I know one of the things, like you said, you didn't ask her. Like big purchases, that's something we've always
Yes,
just
big
discussed in
purchases.
our covenant that we just said, before we make a big purchase, we have to talk about it before we do that.
This was
Yeah.
1 month into marriage.
Okay,
Oh,
you were new.
1 month into marriage. This isn't years. This is a month
yeah.
into marriage. We got married on December 28th, and I think in the end of January. You know, I had been planning to buy this for a long time. So of course.
So it's on your
just
radar
a-
before.
yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's too bad.
One thing I noticed too is to make sure that, you know, we've been married, what, 20, 30, whatever years, and make sure you do things that you grow together instead of grow apart. What I've watched is some people, you know, we're opposites, but we try to find some common ground. Now, God with us is a big thing. I mean, we're pastors, so that's always easy, but, you know, trying to find some other things to make sure that you're doing things together. And I've watched a lot of people that don't do that, and then they grow apart and they find other friends that are more compatible. It's
They
not
do.
good. It's not good. So
Yeah.
try to do that. So now we're going to move to the next part. In Ephesians 5:31, it says, it's a quote from the Old Testament. It says, "For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." Okay. What I want to talk about now, how important it is to develop your own family unit. You know, the Jason and Scarlett household, or the Brad and Denise household. I mean, you guys have extended family, and how are some ways that you deal with the in-laws or outlaws, or however you want to look at it? Have you ever, without getting in trouble, because this is going around the world.
She married into the outlaw, so I'll let her answer that one.
Well, when I first met your family,
It's an adventure.
I mean, they're jokers, and I wasn't really used to that. You know, I was like, are they being serious? Or, you know, I didn't, so, yeah.
You didn't know how to take them.
Yeah, I didn't know how
Yeah.
to take them. I mean, I, enjoyed them, but I wasn't for sure, what they were saying was is that, wow. Your mom, she's a colorful person, she's like you.
Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the good news is she's probably not on Facebook, but this will hit her by the time it's done.
Yeah.
And Kay
I'm sure
will.
Kay will
Hi,
tell
Aunt
her.
Kay.
You know, what I'm getting at is that you each have your family traditions, okay? Now, we live her parents are in a different state, so it's different, but like,
It helps him out a lot.
so we, like for Thanksgiving, Christmas, like our family, we did Christmas on Christmas Eve.
Right.
Well, how about you marry into a family that also does it on Christmas Eve? And then how about you two want to start your own identity and do your own thing on Christmas Eve?
And I think
So
it's-
how do you deal with that tension sometimes between your in-laws or outlaws and all these people and to stand your ground? Because, I've witnessed some things where, maybe the husband or the wife threw the other and under the bus to the family, and how that makes the other person feel.
Yeah, or perceived for the family. Then the family might have bad feelings towards them and stuff like that too. But with us, it was actually quite easy.
Yeah.
Everything kind of just you know.
fell into place.
Yeah, it really did.
No, we didn't have really issues
We
that way.
were pretty easy. I mean, we were relatively close. You know, like
And it was
where
still
families
a
live.
challenge, you know, because
Yeah.
you
They
do
still-
want to be
yeah.
you're coming, and I'll tell you as a parent, this is the thing that in our evolution as a couple and as a family, we've got to be cognitive of that.
Yeah.
That we don't put undue restrictions on our kids as they develop their families,
Right.
and that's our hope is that they develop their family.
And I feel like it's going well.
It's
Yeah.
going
Kind of
well,
sensitive
but it
to
is
it.
when you're
Yeah.
trying to get from all these different places, and you then you know, then you lose the connectivity, right?
Yeah.
And that can separate couples, and that
Mm-hmm.
we have to remember that now as
Grandparents,
right? But early on, when you're first married and you're coming away from those, you are going to have those challenges of finding it. And and one of the things you did say a few minutes ago is, you know, having things in common and doing things in common. And while your kids should be something you have in common, I love my kids immensely. My daughter's sitting behind the camera right now, so she gets to hear this live. Is I love my kids, and they're a huge responsibility for us to get through. But my life and my marriage isn't based upon my kids. I'll chase ball fields, and I'm going to chase them to get there and get my grandkids. But my wife is my
for
top.
them to move out at
Right.
some
And they
point,
leave.
and then you're left
Right.
together with this person
Right.
you maybe
See
don't.
them
Absolutely.
So,
So you
yeah,
don't
so
build
you
your
wanna keep
whole
that,
yeah.
life on that.
Yeah.
When you're building your young life and you're first married, you still have these connections. That your family's still important. They should be the people around you, who are also feeding that marriage.
Yeah.
Supporting.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I know as when I've done weddings and when you've done weddings, I've been there. You do a great job with them. They're full of life. You ask people, you know, are you going to support this new couple? Well, that support should be there to help you through those moments and not be a distraction.
Yeah, we don't want to kick our family to the curb unless
No.
they're outlaws, I guess.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if they're trying to divide you, but I
Yeah.
think, you know, just understanding how important it is, especially for a husband and a wife, to develop that nuclear unit that where you guys know it's you two against the world. I mean, sometimes it can be that way, and we need to know that we have somebody that we can count on. I thank God, you know, that I do, and I hope, you know, you all have picked well too, you know, and found that person. So, yeah, that's important. So you need to find your own family traditions, you know, what you do, and, you know, not just mimic maybe everybody else, but find out what works for you, what's your DNA. What about the idea of comparing your marriage or to other marriages, you know, in order to maybe find some fault, you know, I mean, in our own, I mean, everybody has disagreements, but we can easily compare to those around. And
Well, I think what people do is they compare on what they see on the outside. And
That
everything on the
rejection.
outside
Yeah.
can look really beautiful,
Yeah.
but they don't know what it's like on the inside.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember, everybody is so unique and different. If you watch Hallmark, all the guys are just, you know, they just know the right words to say and stuff like that, and they're romantic and always do that stuff. But there's a great book, and it's called The Five Languages, Five Love Languages. And you've got to find out what your spouse's love language is, you know, and realize that they're going to respond and love you the way that they like to be loved. And they're going to learn how to love you the way you need to be loved from your love language. But that's a process, you know, and sometimes in the midst of that process, things can seem like, oh, they're better over it. Look at that couple. They're so good. Well, maybe they have the same love language or something, but that doesn't mean your marriage isn't good. That doesn't mean your marriage isn't sharing love. It's just doing it sometimes in a different way. And some people are more touchy and huggy and stuff like that, and other people aren't.
I go in spurts.
So, you know what I mean? But it is, because I know, like, you know, our love language is different.
Yeah.
And we've had to learn how to love each other in that way. And it's been a growing process for us, but I think it's been good for us, too.
Oh yeah, it creates tension. You don't like it in the beginning, but it well rounds you. If you try to look at it as a positive thing, you know
It
what I
really
mean?
does.
It forces you to grow, because other than God,
Or you can stay
We're
pretty
opposites
selfish
in a lot
and
of
pretty
ways.
selfish.
I like spicy, you don't. I mean,
Oh, we are opposites.
we're opposites.
Yes.
I mean,
Very.
we kind of laugh about it,
I
you know.
love it.
She said, "Did this taste good?" She asked, "She
Yeah,
does
yeah.
something." I says, "It probably won't,"
Sometimes we're up.
because I'm an opposite. So that's all good.
The comparison game is a folly. And you know, isn't it funny that you know, in the three different times that I've sat on this panel with you, it's been a topic of it because it is the folly of life. We're always in a place of comparing ourselves against something else, typically what the world is seeing, and that comparison, like right now,
Hallmark has made it rough on us guys.
Hallmark,
Yeah.
Facebook. By the way, I think Facebook is
It's
tremendous.
not real.
You know, right now,
Right.
the medium that we're getting is Facebook, and one of the things that I oftentimes worry about when I'm preaching, teaching, or coaching is that they will see and hear what they think is a judgment on their life, right? What I want you to know is that there's no perfection in these four chairs. I love Pastor and Denise, and I think the world of them, but I know all of us have to. So don't think for a second that your comparison in your marriage and in your life, you need to do it based on other men. I think that's why working out of the book, the good book, is so important, because make that your comparison. What you'll find is Jesus didn't come to condemn us. He came to set us free.
Amen.
And the other part of the comparison game that gets us in trouble is in we start comparing our spouse to somebody else,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And that's a horrible folly.
Yeah.
You know, oh, so and so's wife bakes these things. So and so's wife fixes her house this way. What disaster is that, right? My wife knows I have a hard time changing a light bulb in the house. So if she was to go out and compare me to Pastor comes in and hooks things up, right, and gets it done. And that's not my talent nor my skill set.
Yeah.
I'm glad she's not in the constant place of comparing my ability to fix up the house or repair the house. It doesn't mean I don't have a desire to. It's just not my talent.
Right.
So we also need to not compare our lives to other people,
That's
but also
good.
don't compare our spouse
Yes.
to other people.
That will get you in big trouble if you do that. So
Yeah.
anyway, I think we better stop right there. We've been going about 40 minutes or so, and we're going to come back with part 2 next week. I want to encourage you to tune in next Wednesday, and as well as this weekend, tune in to Facebook at 10:30 if you can't make it to service. That's about when we go live. We just cover the preaching part of our service, but I know it's Mother's Day this weekend coming up, so we have a little treat for the mothers. But you know, Saturday night 6 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Come worship with us. It'll be a good time. I like to call it a hoot, but we really have a lot of good time. We do charismatic worship. Come as you are.
Yep.
You don't have to be all dressed up or anything. Just make sure everything's covered that needs to be covered. So we're really into that. But anyway, I do thank you for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you next Wednesday night at 6:30. God bless you.